much here, but I think that white has something somehow. You know, it's very subtle. If you're an absolute beginner, you wouldn't get it. I mean, you would say, hey, look, everything's even. But I think the double pawns favor white slightly. The a file just favors us slightly. You know, now e6, and we have the option to play bishop to d6. When honestly, I think black should play bishop f8. Oh, maybe he has to, you know, but it's really not so bad for him. It's theoretically a good exchange for white, but it's not really a huge deal. We can start thinking about maybe also knight e5 ideas. Again, knight e5 though, I guess he castles, or even trades. Knight e5 castles, I don't know what exactly I'm doing there. I'd like to double on the a file, perhaps. Perhaps I should just castle myself. I'm not worried about bishop c2. Although I don't know if he can do any crazy stuff. If he wants to try to attack me with h5, he can't because of knight takes g5. g4 is anti-positional, so he'll probably follow suit and castle himself. When, you know, maybe I should think about b4. In fact, I mean, I could have done it last move, but I wanted to kind of complete my development. Come to think of it, I mean, b4 is good. It would prepare to play b5. The problem is, I probably need to play b4, b3, b5. If I play just b4, he'll take on c4, and then have knight d5, when my pawn is very awkward. So it's not quite so simple. We can consider rook c1 ideas, exchanging on d5, but exchanging on d5, why it's not bad, allows him to take with the e pawn, and my isolated pawns are pretty hard to do much with. Although we have kind of standard play here, positional stuff like b4, knight a4, knight c5 type of stuff. So I can do that. But it's awkward because I have so many choices and it's hard to decide. I mean, maybe b4, bishop f8 doesn't quite look right, but he could try it. He'll probably take on c4 at b4. Then I have interesting ideas like knight d2. He would be up a pawn there. Although it's interesting gambit even. Like b4 takes, knight c2, knight d2, and like b5, b3. It's a bit tricky though. He has stuff like knight d5, so I'm not going to sack any pawns and try to keep it simple here. But maybe c5 and b4 now. It's not going to happen though. It kind of shuts down the tension in the center. So I want to keep it fluid. Rook c1, I'm not sure what it does. Bishop d6 is interesting. b4 takes, bishop takes. Maybe this is the best. And if knight d5, I can play b5 there. So I guess he should play like b4, take on c4, castles, or maybe knight e7, when it could prove that my b4 pawn is a bit awkward. Knight d2 is an interesting option. It's a tiny bit on the passive side, but I feel somehow this transfer to the queen side feels okay. I got so many ideas based on b4, b5, and b4, knight b3, and knight takes c4, that it just, like, why not play knight d2 right away? What would Kamsky do here? This is very much a Kamsky type of position. He's been playing a lot of London systems, like in the last several years, and he likes Slav. So now b4, I can take with a knight on c4, which feels good. and we're threatening b5. And the knight on c4 has nice entry squares. Knight a5, knight d6. So in this kind of position, it seems like he should try to get some kind of counterplay with e5, but it's not really materializing. And that's part of why I can get away with this retreat from the center. Welcome everyone, I am International Master William Paschall. We're playing some 15-minute chess. We'll get some blitz chess to speed things up when the action slows down. We're going to learn some things about the game here. And also check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training. I've posted everything on the page as well, which I didn't do up till now, so I think that will make life a lot easier, not having to type in links to my YouTube channel while I'm losing on time, which is something we've been doing too much. But anyway, thanks guys for joining us. Thank you, Espresso Forever. Wow, we got some ideas now. The bishop on h2 working really well, the knight on c4. The b4 pawn, more difficult than it seems to do anything about. And he's hitting it. I can take. And it looks like this is very good for me, because we've got b8 covered. And we've got a fork on the knight, on the bishop on f5. So we are going to take on d5, put the knight on d6, and fork the pawn on b7 with the bishop on f5, which should lead to an advantage to white. He does have a7 for his rook, so like knight a5, probably not enough. And the other problem with knight a5 is that it does interfere with the rook on the a file, so it would interfere with my tactical ideas of having like b5 at some point. Maybe not completely, but there could be some cool ideas even there. If the rook was on a7, you had a line like ed, knight a5, rook a7, b5. I'd have a nice shot. I'm not sure it would actually do anything. Knight c6. B5, he needs to move. Yeah. Okay, he took with the c pawn. And now I'm definitely leaning toward knight d6 because I want to take away the file from him so he won't have the move rook c8 as well. And this is very good for me. Basically, double threat of smashing his pawn structure, winning a bishop pair, and also winning the pawn on b7, which would be kind of catastrophic for black because he would weaken the resulting pawn on a6. Okay, now things start to get interesting. He has resources. Not sure if I should even take the bishop, honestly. It's not an auto capture because we have other ideas like rook c1, rook c6, just infiltrating. It seems that, however, I might have some kind of direct win, like knight takes f5, pawn takes f5, bishop f3 is interesting. However, there he has knight f6, which seems to hold it together. Maybe bishop d3 instead of bishop f3. There's a lot of possibilities here. By the way, I uploaded a new video to my YouTube channel. It's a game Dmitry Yakovenko played with white, and it's not that different from this position. Two bishops in like a double rook and minor piece, double minor rook piece, double rook position. Yakovenko with a really nice win in Gibraltar. I like that game an awful lot. Here we have so many good ideas. It's hard to decide what to do, but do I let him keep the bishop here? I guess I go for the static weakness. He has some tricks to like maybe jettison the pawn back with f4, and it would possibly cause me some trouble with my guy there on d4, and consequently the pawn on b2. So there is a scary possibility that he's got this f4 liquidation idea, and it might actually be pretty good for him. I could try to defend it, but rook d1 or something is quite passive. I feel like I have to go for the d5 pawn. You know, I think the simple endgame somehow should be good for me. Bishop f3, we're going to go with that. I think the d5 pawn is super important here. This slows him down. He'd like to play knight b6 and play actively, and if I can force him to go to f6, he stops up the pressure against d5, but at the same time he kind of loses his own counterplay with f4. So I think this move, combined with a kind of like standard sort of taking over the c file, and maybe g4, is going to be an important move for me. Because this is going to stop him from undoubling my... I mean, yeah, that's not the right thing to say. I was going to say it stops him from undoubling my pawns, but that's crazy. It actually allows him to undouble his pawns. But, you know, he's going to like chase my bishop. So, I'm wondering if I have time for this. g4, like fixing his pawns. I think I have time for it. I mean, the idea would be maybe rook c8, rook c1, and he does have threats of knight e4, knight d2, so I want to keep that possibility in mind. I have to be a little careful to make a look for my king. So I think this is g4's most important feature here, guys, that, you know, when the going gets tough and my king starts to have problems on the back rank, we have a square at g2. And in the endgame, fixing those pawns on g5 and h6 could be very significant. I like the structure for white, and he still has weaknesses. Again, if you guys check out my game from YouTube that I analyzed yesterday, not my game, but Yakovenko's game, you're going to start to have like deja vu if you look at this pawn structure on the board here. I guess I'm heavily influenced by Grandmaster Yakovenko. Now, we have to do a little calc. Yeah, normally he might have a rook c4 type of thing, but it's not really working here because I have play with a very nasty rook c4, rook takes c4, b takes c4, b5, winning by force. And the two bishops just totally crushing black. Now I'm threatening to just win a pawn. And notice when I capture on a6, his whole structure becomes weak, a la Kostenyuk. b5, d5, g5, h6, it's the same position. That, you know, it's almost the same position, except for Cool Wizard yesterday didn't play g4. He just sort of controlled the square with his mind or something. But it's really, you know, you think, oh well, it's a closed position, the two bishops is not a big deal. But this is a position where it is a big deal. Now it gives me the file. I guess he's going to try to play bishop f8. But he has issues here. I guess I can lose the pawn on b4 and seek counterplay. Yeah, seeking counterplay on the other flank. Rook c6. Rook c6 if king g7. Bishop e5. This will keep an eye on everything. What about knight e4? Well, it also creates the possibility of bishop d6. Actually, that could be like insanely critical. To have bishop d6. I'm talking about the bishop pair here, but the truth is that maybe I have to be a little bit careful. Maybe I'll have to trade. Knight e4, bishop takes e4, pawn takes e4, bishop d6. Bishop takes d6, rook takes d6 with a clearly better rook ending. I'm not sure if it's winning, but it's certainly unpleasant for black.